Whiskey Spirits with Matt Ray and Justin Grimble.
This is all you could ever ask for, Mike.
We got a special guest in the studio, a couple of them. We got Jonathan, pronounce your last name. Maisano.
He just told you.
I know, dude, but I'm from the South. I'm slow. Maisano. And Ashley from Mad Vines.
With Mad Vines and Spirits, yeah.
Fourth time on the show?
I think so, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
And
Can't
this is
stay
with
away.
K.LUKE Whiskey Company out of Mississippi.
So I live in Ocean Springs, Mississippi.
Technical.
But all the whiskey is from Kentucky and Indiana and then bottled at Bardstown Bourbon Company.
Nice.
Perfect.
We were just by there not too long ago. We didn't go to Bardstown, but we're close. We went to did a Maker's Mark pick.
Never gets old being up there picking out
that's
great
fun.
barrels of whiskey.
I mean, if that was my job, that would be just amazing life, I think. And I think that is your job, right?
It has. I've been
You did a lot of them.
I've been super fortunate in my career, both wine and whiskey wise, and spent a lot of time in Kentucky the last 11 years picking out barrels. So
That's awesome.
So tell us a little background on you.
So my original background, I started off working in restaurants when I was 16. Got working in fine dining, got an incredible opportunity to work in an unbelievable fine dining restaurant with a great sommelier, and really fell in love with wine. Got to start meeting winemakers from all over the world and tasting really incredible wine. So that was really kind of the jumpstart of my passion into to wine and whiskey. Then from there, waiting tables, I always drank whiskey after work, and I got my sommelier certification. I opened up my retail store 19 years ago down in Ocean Springs, and about 11 years ago, the brand ambassador for Four Roses talked me into going up pick up barrel number one. I'm thinking 11 years ago, it's a big commitment to go out and spend, 10 grand right buying a barrel. And he goes, well, the good news is you love the product. So if you don't sell it all, you can drink it. And I'm like, well, I guess that's one way to look at it. And so I make this first trip up to Kentucky, and I had met Bill Samuels a couple years earlier from Maker's Mark before he retired. And Bill said, son, if you ever come to Kentucky, look me up. And I'm going, okay, I don't know if I'll ever make it up that way, but if I do, I'll hit you up. So I reached out to Bill Samuels. He calls me and says, well, here's what we're going to do. Come by the house. We'll have some drinks, go out and have dinner. My great-grandfather had the first package store in New Haven, Connecticut. They opened up December 10th, 1933, so 5 days after Prohibition. Before that, my family imported olive oil. And so I'd asked my dad, I was like, how'd you guys get in the liquor business so quick? He's like, we're Italian on the East Coast. It just happened. Good enough for me. So I have a long history, and I have a bottle of 1979 Wild Turkey my dad gave me when I turned 21. So I called out to the distillery, and I said, hey, I've got this special bottle. They said, well, here's Jimmy Russell's cell phone number. Call him. If he doesn't answer, leave a message. He loves to meet people. I'm like, I don't want to call Jimmy Russell. It's the godfather of bourbon. So I called, leave a message. When I get to the distillery, Jimmy and Eddie are there. I give them to sign my bottle of 79. So this first week going to Kentucky, picking out barrel number one was just an incredible experience. And I was hooked after that. Like tasting through the first set of barrels at Four Roses really opened up my eyes, like how special and how different every single barrel of bourbon was. And I was blown away. Fast forward to today basically, and I picked out 415 single barrels for retail. I've gotten to taste with just about every master distiller and every warehouse out there. I figure I tasted about 1,600 barrels straight from the barrel.
Wow.
So K.LUKE is a relatively new brand. My wife and I started the brand in 2021. First product came out in June of 2022. So we've been about 2 years in the market, next month. The brand is named after our children. So our daughter, Caitlin, turning 12. Our son, Luke, is turning 7. So really, K.LUKE is all about sharing our love of whiskey and family with the world. We're currently sourcing from 7 different distilleries in Kentucky and Indiana. People always ask, do you plan to, build a distillery and run your own distillate? I'm like, absolutely not. That's a whole another lifetime career, right, of learning how to run distillate. And I could never do it better than Brent Elliott and Jim and Eddie Russell and Fred No and all the guys I've met over the years. So why would you even want to? It's the way I look at it. My job instead, I always tell people it's like being a chef in a really well-stocked kitchen with fresh ingredients. I look for the best whiskey out there, and then from there I rate all the barrels. I break them down in categories, aromatics, mid-palate, back-end. Are they fruit-driven? Are they more like caramel toffee? Are they more spice-driven? And I take notes on all my barrels. So when I go to create a blend, I tell people it's like just like being a chef. I don't want to raise the cattle. I don't want to, grow the produce. I find the best whiskey, and then my job is to create a well-executed bottle of bourbon, in a really nice small batch. The current releases are 10-barrel blends. So that usually gives us between, 6, 7 different distillery mash bill combinations. So it's really cool. When you taste the whiskeys, everyone always goes, I can't place any particular distillery in here. I'm like, well, that's the goal, is to be really well balanced, elegant, layered. We bottle everything at Bardstown Bourbon Company. Everything is non-chill filtered. It's barrel strength, so you get to taste it just as I did creating the blend. So I'll go through and create a dozen blends that kind of make sense on paper, right? Which doesn't always translate to the whiskey in the glass. It's amazing how different things go throughout the process. And then from there, my wife and I will blind taste through the blends. We don't discuss them till the end. And then we talk about each one of them. It's like, okay, how do you rate this one? How do I rate it? And we go through and talk about what do we like or not like, what was missing, what drank perfectly. And then I readjust the blends one barrel at a time based off our feedback and notes on them. And then when we get down to our top 3 or 4 choices, we run them blind against the best bourbons on the market, right? Like I'm looking around, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof, all the things people are really excited about, Stag Junior, Four Roses Limited. And if we don't come in the top 1 or 2 choices in those blends, we run our previous blends as well. It's like, okay, what made those whiskeys more exciting palate-wise to us blind? And then I go, okay, we were missing like this component. We needed more finish, or we needed more richness or more fruit. And I go back to my notes. I start adjusting blends 1 barrel at a time. We rerun them blind. So it's a long, drawn-out process in between the batches. Again, it's all done by taste. I'm never trying to recreate the previous batch, just trying to recreate like the same multi-layered whiskey experience. So that's the whole kind of process behind what we do.
Very cool.
Ready to taste?
Yeah, I thought we just had the owner rep coming on. We had like a superhero.
I'm telling you. That's
like
a
the
lot of
dream
work,
job.
though, that goes into that. And you've got a rye also, so you do that with each. You do it with a rye. You do it with a.
We do, yeah. So the first one we're tasting here, this is our batch 8 small batch barrel strength bourbon. So this is a 10-barrel blend. Again, the legal parameters kind of behind K.LUKE. It's blended straight, so it's got to be at least 4 years old, but it's all older than that in the blend. No more than 36% rye. That's why it's a blend of high rye, low rye. And it only is sourced from Kentucky and Indiana. So we don't have any other areas we're bringing whiskey in. For me, those 2 whiskeys complement each other really well. Indiana is usually a little more delicate. Kentucky's a little bit bigger, richer style. And again, I don't think the whiskeys fight. I think they mesh really well together. You start throwing in other areas, and sometimes I think there can be a little more polarizing one way or another flavor-wise. So for me personally, like the Kentucky Indiana is just the sweet spot as far as whiskey profile, and I think they work really well together. So
When you're doing all the sampling and stuff, you just do that at your house. They send you samples of all the barrels, or
So we get samples pulled from the barrels every quarter. I either pick them up in Kentucky or I'll have them sent down to me. We could bottle at Bardstown Bourbon Company, and we could do all our blending there because that's where we bottle at. But we'd be limited to a small schedule of time of when I can get there.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, so for me, I want to be able to taste at 7 o'clock in the morning or at noon or 8 o'clock at night.
See, we're not the only ones.
Exactly.
Right, because your palate drinks different times of
true.
the day. So we run our blind tastings at all different times.
Smart.
If you have barbecue, right, the acidity in the sauce is going to change the profile. If you have a cigar, there's so many mood and things that change the way whiskey and wine tastes. So it is very important to us to be able to taste all those different aspects. When I add a little bit of water, maybe add it over ice. Not everyone's going to just sit and have a Glencairn of straight bourbon, right? The reality in the world is people are going to drink it however they feel like, and you should be able to, however you enjoy it. And we put all those factors into when we're creating the blends. Also, at home, I have a few bottles of whiskey at home, as you can imagine, picking out barrels for a long time and being in retail. If you told me, your favorite bourbon was X, Y, or Z, I was okay, well, maybe I can get a bottle of that and we'll go home and run it blind. And if it's something I've never had before, we actually won't taste it until we run it to the blind tastings because we try to be as unbiased as possible.
That's cool.
And we will actually, even if we win a tasting consecutively, I'm like, okay, well, the bottom choices were the bottom over and over again. Let's rotate those out with 2 new whiskeys, bring them in. Let's see, does we still have the same results? Because it is
like
super
that.
important for us that every K.LUKE batch is going to have its own personality, but that we really want it to be a multi-layered whiskey experience every single time. And it's really cool. I'll do, seminars. We call them the Spirit of Blending. We'll pour multiple batches side by side, and it's usually split like 3 batches. It's a third, a third, and a third in the room. And what that always tells me is people are equally excited about the batches. And you'll ask people, hey, why did you pick batch, 3 or 7? Like, oh, I like it was a little softer, a little more fruit driven. Why did you pick, batch, 2 or this batch? Like, oh, it was more spicy and kind of big and round, or 6 or 8, kind of more caramel toffee. And it's like, it's really cool to see, because even for us, we pick out different batches, our favorite in the blind tastings as well. And I think that's what makes the brand special, what makes it unique. And again, we don't want it to just be good. We want it to be great and really exciting on every batch.
This is really good. It's got a lot of spice to me, which I love, but it's super smooth.
It is.
That nose is so pretty.
So 118.8 proof. My personal style is about 115 plus or minus 5 points.
Yep.
So we don't really look at the proof in the blind tastings when I'm creating the batches. Just naturally, as I start making barrel adjustments, it just lands in that proof because that's what I like, right?
Yep.
I know what I like, and my wife Jennifer has a really good palate. Also, she has a little bit more difficult time like describing what she likes. I'm like, you don't have to nail all the nuances.
Right.
You just know what you like. So it's a really good like combination together, and we know when both of us really love a blend. I know it's something special because she picks up on different things. She's not a big fan of way too old of whiskey, right? So even some of the Four Roses small batch LEs that I love in the blind tasting, she's like, in this particular whiskey, I'm getting too much like leather, like old whiskey notes, and she doesn't love that. She wants the vibrancy, and I think that's something really important for us with K.LUKE. We have the opportunity to have so many cool different styles of bourbon and whiskey blended together. Because the age doesn't always matter, the distillery doesn't always matter, the mash bill. It's all about finding the right combination, and that's our goal in every blend.
That's really good.
What do you think?
Got a really good nose, like Ashley said.
It's good.
So for me, it's trying to find that balance of, some nice like red fruit. I actually get a little rose petal in this one. You get that kind of caramel toffee mid palate, just enough of that vibrant spice in the back end that like balances out the sweetness that draws you in for more. Like for me, that's something I love in the finish of whiskey. You want just enough like bright spice that kind of cuts through the sweetness, and then it kind of goes back and forth between sweet and spicy, because that's how you get into a bottle of whiskey and you sit and you have a couple pours more than you plan to, because you're so excited to want to have more of it, and you just want to keep getting into the glass.
It's like
So that, like I said, the barrel strength bourbon, we bottle it every quarter. So the next one coming up will be out just in time for Father's Day. Hopefully it's going to be in the stores here in Alabama to launch just before Father's Day. And then the third one will be just before Bourbon Heritage Month for September. And then the last one will come out mid-November leading into Thanksgiving, Christmas. So 4 times a year on the silver label, the small batch barrel strength. Then the next 2 that we're going to try, the orange label is small batch toasted barrel bourbon, also barrel strength. And then our toasted barrel rye, we bottle those alternating quarters. So like batch 2 toasted barrel bourbon that we're about to try, we bottled our last release 3 months ago. This next bottling on next week, we'll bottle the toasted barrel rye. Then 3 months from now, we'll do toasted barrel bourbon again. Then the last release, we'll do toasted barrel rye. So that's kind of our release schedule. We also did a limited release last year. It came out in November that was finished in wine barrels. So I don't usually love a lot of barrel finished products because I think, just me personally, I think 2 things happen with a lot of them. One, they're cut to proof. And when you do that, you get so much of the finish, I think it overwhelms the core whiskey. Well, we work way too hard in the blends to let the finish overwhelm the whiskey. And you'll see that with the toasted barrel as well. For us, the secondary barrel should just be like a nice accent note, just another seasoning in the dish, but not be the main focus, right? If you have a great protein, why would you cover it up with a super heavy sauce and take away from what you worked so hard to source? So that's our goal on toasted barrel. So this toasted barrel bourbon batch 2, also a 10-barrel blend, also came in 118 proof. We did a 4-month finish medium toast on the barrel. So again, just enough to add some of those like sweet vanilla and wood notes without overpowering the core whiskey. I blend the toasted barrel products differently than the core barrel strength. It's a different makeup of barrels, usually a little bit more broad shoulder, a little bit more spice driven, because again, I want that sweetness from the toasted barrel to accent that and not overwhelm the whiskey, not have it get lost in there.
That's really good. I like that it's the barrel strength toasted.
But it is so smooth. I mean, it's got that sweetness and it's just so approachable.
So one of the things, like critically, the last week or so is the new batches have been getting reviewed by critics, and some of the whiskey competitions we entered in. The one thing I've noticed, toasted barrel, all of them were like, wow, there's really nice red fruit. Some of it said strawberry, some more cherry, but like really nice red fruit, along with your more traditional like caramel toffee, some spice, and then just that nice accent of toasted barrel. The San Francisco World Spirits Competition last week put out the results, and our batch 8 that we tasted a minute ago got 95 points, double gold. The toasted barrel got 99 points, double gold. Also qualified, which we haven't released yet, but also qualified for Whiskey of the Year in the category. Sweet. So my wife and I are actually going to fly out in October for the live unveiling of Whiskey of the Year. So huge for us being a small company.
Cool.
And
Congrats.
And that's this one here?
Yes, sir. Yeah, batch 2.
That's very good.
And again, that goal is just to have that nice round balance, great mouthfeel, and just those nice like accent notes of toasted oak, where it just doesn't overpower that core whiskey.
I like what you said a minute ago. Like it has the spice, but then it has the sweet kind of back and forth.
Yeah.
Because like I'll get it like it'll kind of hit you like it was a little harsh, then it smooths out instead of just staying harsh the whole time.
Yeah, and I think in this one, like the toasted barrel, I think it actually brings out a little bit more of the wood spice in there. But like it brings it out, but it's also kind of like soft wood spice, and it's not. Sometimes you think of spice, you think of a lot of baking spice, especially in rye. So like we'll talk about that more with the next whiskey when we get to it. For me, if a whiskey is super spicy, then it starts tasting really hot, and then it's like, I really can't drink this. I want to be able to enjoy the whiskey, and I love the taste of bourbon, but I want to enjoy it. Like I don't want to just be hit in the face with spice or alcohol. Some of these super high proof whiskeys, I could appreciate a little bit of it, but I can't just sit and relax and drink it. Yeah. When I want to sit at the end of the day, I want to sit and pour a glass of whiskey and sit and relax with it, enjoy it, let it open up, let it evolve. I don't want to just have to like struggle through drinking it. I don't care how expensive or how limited it is. If you don't love it, it doesn't matter. It's you got to drink what you love and be excited about what you love. So
that's what I'll tell Matt. We'll pour something in. We won't like it, and I'll throw it out. He's like, don't throw it out. I'm like, we got other stuff. Like I don't, like you said, I don't want to just power through.
I like to go back and check it out. Like that Garrison Brothers, I did not like it at all at first, and it's grown on me.
And sometimes whiskeys, especially in higher proof, and just in general, they need some air. Especially when you just open up the bottle. Sometimes, especially if it's high proof, you need a little oxygen. Let it open up. Let it get in the glass a little bit. And kind of sit and relax with it. But after you kind of go through all that, if I can't sit and enjoy it, then I just, I'm gonna feel the same way. I'm gonna pour it out. I'm not gonna just sit and force myself. I feel the same way with cigars, with food. Like if I don't love it,
it's not worth it.
When I finally get a chance to sit down and have a cigar, I want to sit and relax with it. It's only on occasion. It's not like I sit and have one every day. So if I don't like it, I'm just gonna,
the same way.
Get rid of it and start over again. Because I'm not gonna force myself to drink something or smoke something or eat something. If I don't love it, there's no point.
Sure.
And one of the other things I really appreciate too about whiskey instead of wine, I drink a lot of wine too. A $100 bottle of wine is gone in one sitting, right? $100 bottle of whiskey or $200 bottle of whiskey, you can sit and enjoy that so many experiences with friends and family and hang out, and you just get so many more opportunities to experience that bottle than you do with wine.
I'm gonna show that little segment to my wife.
I'll send you
because she never has a problem buying wine, but she's like, "You really need another bottle of bourbon?" I'm like. But it lasts so long. You can make it last so long.
And you can go through it so many experiences. I get friends come over and I'm like, look, every barrel I've ever picked is open at my house. Every batch K.LUKE, obviously, and a few other things. I'm like, look, just grab whatever. I don't care. I love them all equally. So let's just grab 6 different bottles, go sit outside, and
try them all.
Yeah, grab a box of Glens and let's go sit and have a good time with it. And I think that's what whiskey is all about. Sure. I never understand the bottle these bottles and never open them. I understand saving things for special occasions, right? I mean, obviously, I have whiskey for my kids, from their birth years and wine. But in general, I love people come over to my house, and when the kids have birthday parties in the neighborhood, everyone's like, "Hey, can we stop by the house and have a pour bourbon?" Sure, I enjoy sharing it and getting people's feedback.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, if people come to my house, Van Winkle products, I have some at my house. I don't personally love them. I think they're too soft. But if people have never had them, sure, I'll be happy to pour you some Lot B, or some Rip, but it's in a blind tasting, a blind flight of other wheated bourbons, and just try it unbiased.
Yes,
because it's a whiskey in the glass, not because it's an $80, $800 bottle or $100, $1,000 bottle, right? Sure. Just try it for the whiskey and see what you think.
I agree with you. He sounds just like me. Yeah, I open everything. My wife makes fun of me. She's like, "You're walking from the mailbox, getting a package, opening it." I'm like, "Yeah." Been waiting for it.
Yeah, and you want to share, right? You want to go and share it together and share with other people. And I mean, that's for me, that's the really cool part about whiskey is the experiences. My most prized bottle is a 1979 Wild Turkey, and it's called the Captain's Decanter. It's in a Baccarat crystal bottle. And when I turned 21, that's what my dad gave me, and we cracked it open and had a pour. We drink it on special occasions. My birthday's Christmas Eve. My dad's the day after. Cool. And we drink it. We drink it at anniversaries of the store. And it's what are you going to do with it? I mean, we got to drink the bottle. It's already been sitting there since 20-something years. Let's sit and enjoy the bottle. And
that's what it's made for.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to drink the whole.
You know what's going to happen? I heard this story many times when I was at Linnell's. Your kid's going to grow up, and his kid is going to pop that bottle and drink it with his friends.
Yeah, or
on
sell
a
it.
Friday night
Yeah.
or a Tuesday morning.
Mixing it with
Right.
Coke or something.
Just a rate for yeah.
And like Freddie Johnson said, your dad may not be there next
Yeah.
year to have him pour that, right?
That's
so
true.
if you keep waiting and waiting and waiting, and then it's like, well, now this happened and we never got to drink it. I was like, there's no way. I mean,
That's why I open everything. And like you said, like, say I can get this, I'll open it. Well, I'll try it on Friday. And then we leave it there. We can drink it next year or a few months later. You don't have to drink the whole bottle on a Friday night.
yeah, and it's really
Switch it
cool
up.
too. Like with K.LUKE, people will run those batches side by side. I'm like, look, go home and run them blind against each other, have fun with it, like enjoy them.
Yeah.
Whiskey is such an open-ended opportunity of enjoyment. Like it doesn't have to be like the set.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, do you only drink it neat? I'm like, no, I drink it neat. I drink it over a big cube of ice. Like if I'm sitting outside grilling on my green egg, which I love to do. If you guys follow me on social media, there's a time and a place for everything. I enjoy cocktails. I like paper planes and old fashions and Manhattans and Boulevardiers. Like there's a time and a place for everything to be locked into. And I also don't expect people just to drink K.LUKE. I want you to enjoy all your favorite whiskeys, right? We just love the opportunity to be in the rotation of what you love. I mean, that's, again, I think if you just get so focused on one thing, then there's so much more you miss out on enjoyment-wise.
Agreed.
I agree with you. That's what, whenever I get some of this in from Ashley, we're definitely doing it on Friday nights. We all get together and drink. We call it our double doozy club because we usually get kind of drunk, and then my daughter's boyfriend goes and gets us cookies. It's all the guys in the neighborhood. They drive their golf carts over, like you were saying, different occasions, and we'll just come over and blind taste stuff, whatever.
And then when you start really getting into it, like I've had nights where like, maybe like a Four Roses pick, something I picked 40 or 50 barrels of, or, Russells. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have one. I'm like, I wonder how this other barrel tasted. Let me try it next to it. And I'm like, let me get 3 more of them. And then I'm like, well, I might as well go ahead and taste, the whole run from this warehouse. And then next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, but you just get so caught up in the excitement of enjoying what's in the glass that it just draws you in for more.
Sure.
And it's really cool for me too that both me and my wife can enjoy it together. So it's really neat that we get to experience that together. I know a lot of times, not both like to drink whiskey necessarily. So
Right.
for me, it's really cool that both of us enjoy wine and whiskey, and we get to share that together.
And you're both vested in it, so you have the same goals.
Yeah.
And you want to create the best product out there. This one is
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, I mean that's a
Very
great,
nice.
great
I
bottle.
appreciate it.
I have a question. When you're making your blends, do you ever mix cocktails with them to help to see how it works that way? I know that most folks are not mixing with these at
So-
home, but just to see how those flavors work out.
We mix cocktails with them, on occasion, but I know the average person's probably not going to. We also do a 100 proof version that we haven't bottled here in a little bit. So, for me, like barrel strength, if I'm going to sit at the end of the day and have one pour of whiskey, I want something that's
Right.
got some body and it's going to open up in the glass. I love drink barrel strength. But if I'm going to sit, like, again, cooking on my green egg, for example, I make paper planes at home. So we usually use the 100 proof version. We just haven't bottled it even a little bit. We're working on some adjustments with it. Plan to bring it back out in the market, though. So more of the 100 proof, we do cocktails with it.
Yeah.
And again, when I'm making cocktails at home, I've always loved, kind of a bourbon that's got some nice rye content in there because when you're mixing with other ingredients, you need something that's going to stand up to it.
Yeah.
And I think 100 proof is like the sweet spot for me personally in cocktails. So yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I've drank some cocktails with the barrel strengths, but usually more with the 100 proof version, which hopefully at some point we'll get up here back out in the market again. Cool. And I think it's more cocktail friendly.
I think so. Yeah, for your mass market.
Yeah, and
type
price
stuff.
point wise too. I mean, I know most people aren't going to buy this price point of whiskey to do a cocktail. Although at the end of the day, most of your cocktail, if it's bourbon focused, you got to have something you enjoy. There's no point in using trying to save some money and get something that's inferior. Then you're like the cocktail or vermouth. I tell people all the time, in vermouth, if you use an inexpensive vermouth in a Manhattan,
You can tell.
Yeah, they're not very good.
I love vermouth, so
Yeah,
spreading the gospel.
if I go to a bar and I look and I see it's like there's no other vermouths on the back bar, like it's just I'm like, no, I'm not getting it.
Right.
There's no way because I already know I'm not going to enjoy it. No matter how expensive the whiskey is, that vermouth is going to overshadow it if it's not good. So I think it's all those things go hand in hand together.
Yeah, and a good bourbon cocktail, bourbon forward, like it can make it shine. Like you can see it certain flavors pop and they're aromatics.
and the balance
And you just,
and-
you can like, wow, whoa, what is this bourbon doing? It can be really fun. I've had some interesting bourbons and cocktails. There's a Starlight Ambarana finish in a cocktail. That was pretty wild.
Oh, I bet trying to find like the balance of flavor there too is a little bit challenging, But like Starlight Blackberry cocktails are incredible. I mean, you can make some really cool, like a bramble or like a nice, refreshing summer cocktail with that Starlight Blackberry is unbelievable. And again, I think people need to. You have you have to enjoy what you enjoy, right? Like my dad will tell me all the time. He's like, I don't know about tasting notes. I just know what I like. He's like, when you pour it in the glass, I either like it or I don't. He goes, no, I don't really care outside of that. I'm like, I don't.
At the end of the day,
but
yeah.
you don't have to. Like you do. My job of blending the whiskey, or if I was recommending wine to someone on that side of the of the world for my life, it's my job is to know. Your job is just to enjoy it, right? Your job is just to get whatever it is in the glass and enjoy it. My job is to be able to translate what are you looking for and what's your description of sweet and dry, and spice levels and all that. That's my job. Your job as a consumer is just get it in the glass and enjoy it, right?
There you go.
Y'all ready for some rye?
Yes, ma'am.
So again, the Toasted Barrel Rye, we'll be bottling the batch 3 next week as well. So the first 2 products coming to Alabama will be the Barrel Strength batch 9 bourbon and the Toasted Barrel Rye batch 3.
Okay.
This particular batch here, batch 2, is all sourced from Indiana. Batch 3 will be Kentucky and Indiana, like all the rest of our products. And moving forward, all the batches of rye will be Kentucky and Indiana. It just took me a while to find the right Kentucky rye that wasn't so spice driven that it overpowered the more delicate. Like you'll see when you taste this one, my goal in the rye is to be more like floral citrus, more of a, like I say, a pretty style, a pretty style rye that drinks more of like a bourbon drinker's rye, rather than like an in your face, super dry baking spice, just pounding down on you, style rye. So it took me a while to find the right Kentucky partner that really balanced out the Indiana, added a nice backbone, but didn't overpower it. So I'll look forward to hearing what you guys think of the batch 3 when it comes out here in the market in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that was really good. I knew Matt was going to like it. It's a good sweet rye balance.
It is.
I
Yeah.
always spend a lot of time just smelling them. I love it.
Yeah, and this rye's got some really nice aromatics to it.
I like it's weird. I like in the morning I'll leave my glass out and then smell it in the morning because it just sits there all night and you can smell like the oaky and the rye, all the different flavors.
An empty whiskey glass of great whiskey has such a cool. Like, it smells totally different than when the whiskey's in there. But if it was a good whiskey, like the glass has got a really neat.
A wife will come in the kitchen. I'm like, I'm not drinking. I'm just smelling it from last night.
It's 6:30 in the morning,
It's
but
pretty.
yeah,
You said it was pretty. It is pretty.
It's great.
It's soft.
That's really good.
Yeah, Jennifer makes fun of me for calling it a pretty style rye. I'm like, but it is. But she doesn't like super dry, like spicy ryes either. Like she likes, peerless and more again of that softer, like more approachable style rye. The ryes we typically finish toasted barrel about 3 months. Again, I don't want there to be too much wood influence to take away from that more delicate style of what I look for in the rye barrels.
I mean, I'm a rye person, so But ooh, that's pretty.
And again, you get some nice vibrant citrus and some like softer floral notes, and then again, just enough of that like vanilla wood spice
Toast,
to accent that in the toasted barrel, but not overpower it.
That is really good.
This one also came in at 116.8. The new batch is going to come in just under 115 proof.
Okay.
The new barrel strength batch 9 will be 118 and change again. So you can kind of see my wheelhouse of flavor.
Yeah.
And I will never deviate from what I believe in. I never did picking up barrels. Like I picked every barrel blind. I never cared about, what warehouse was it from or, what was the age. I'm like, at the end of the day, if you pick your barrels off anything other than the flavor, it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a disservice to everybody, right? To the end consumer, to yourself. And I never changed a barrel. I mean, out of all 415 barrels, I never picked a barrel and then they said, oh, well, it's going to be a short yield, or this one over here was 7 years old. Like, I don't care. I mean, if this was the best whiskey, it was the best whiskey, and I never, not once did I ever change my mind. I was at a tasting once somewhere, and the regular person couldn't be there, and it was like, just a regular person had to come do it, like from the gift shop, and I said, hey, I'm going to go with this barrel, but I'd like to know. Like, I don't know if I can tell you. I said, I can assure you 2 things. I bet you I picked the youngest barrel, and I bet you it's the lowest proof. And they, why would you say that? I said, because I know what I like. And this particular distillery, I don't like it too old. I think it gets way too oaky, too dry. And she's like, yeah, it's the youngest barrel. It's, the older one was up to 4 years older, and it is the lowest proof. I'm like, I know, because I know what I like. And I said, look, it could have been a 20-year-old barrel of whatever. I'm not going to change it. It makes no difference to me. Because, again, if you don't pick it, people used to always ask, like, who picks barrels? I'm like, I pick all the barrels, because it's at the end of the day, it was my name going on there, and I pick every barrel and I blend every whiskey. If it was the last whiskey I got to drink, that's how important it is, right? And I don't expect you to buy something I put my name on. If I don't believe in it 100%, why should you believe in it? So
Sure.
We actually met before, picking barrels. I was with Linnell
cool.
at Jim Beam.
Awesome.
Picking Knob Creek barrels. He picked him up this morning. I was like, you look so familiar. And then we figured it out.
That's awesome.
she had a few barrels and he had a few barrels, and we were tasting. And
That's pretty cool. I like
small
this.
world.
I like this one a lot.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I love this one. And I thought I wouldn't love that one as much, but man, both of those are
I appreciate it.
great freaking bottles.
I do a lot of, tastings and events, and a lot of times, 50-50 people are like, I don't like rye at all. I'm like, yeah, I have plenty of ryes I don't like either. Like, look, you're not, there's no charge for like, just try it. If you don't like it, it's never going to hurt my feelings for you to spit it out or pour it out. But just try it. You're here at the event, and I feel the same when I would do lead wine tastings. I'm like, look, you may not like this style of wine. You're already here. You already paid like a price. Just try it, and I'm not a big gin fan, but I taste every gin I possibly can because I need to know the difference, right, between, I don't know what, adding magnolia flowers or adding cucumber, unless if I taste it. I don't really know. It was like JT Milk, the rice whiskey. I was like, I cannot fathom what rice whiskey could possibly taste. And I sought out to try that at the New Orleans Bourbon Fest 2 years ago, and I was blown away. And I was like, because I had no, like, what do you relate that to? I have no idea. Of all the stuff I've tried, I've never had a whiskey made from rice.
Interesting.
And what it tasted to me like was a high proof wheat whiskey, and it was awesome. And I got, I've gotten to know Mia now from JT Mellick, and I was blown away. But I had no like comparison point. I'm like, I've got to go try that. I've got to go.
Yeah.
There's one whiskey I'm going to try at this event. That's the one, because there's so much out there to taste and try. And I always tell people, for me, I've spent my whole life like studying in on sensory evaluation. Like when I was studying wine, they used to tell us, go to the grocery store, like you need to smell all the produce, all the seasonings, all the spices. You're talking about getting some weird looks. But if you can't relate, like if you don't know like the difference between like raspberries and black cherry and strawberry, it's really hard to
pick those out.
Yeah, it's all memory recall, right? So if you can't recall an experience in your life, minerality in wine, people used to always ask, like, what does that mean? What is a mineral note in wine? I used to always describe it like, okay, when you go play goofy golf, again, I live in South Mississippi. It's super hot during the summer, like the water coming over one of those caves, and you smell like that mineral note on the rock. Like that to me is like the smell aromatics of minerality in wine. And half people are like, oh, I totally get it. I took my kids to play goofy golf last month, and it was hot. And the other half are like, what in the hell are you talking about? So it's, but you have to have something to relate back to. Sure. And when I was studying wine, we tasted in a group of about 12, and you'd smell something, you're like, man, I can't quite place. Like I know the aroma. And somebody like, oh, it's this, and you're like, oh, that's exactly. Now that you said it, I can place it.
Yeah.
And you got to hone in on your own palate. And I've been. Freddie Minnick made a comment, I don't know, 6 months, a year ago, and he's like, you could learn how to become a master distiller, right? You could learn like a doctor, right? You could put the time in and learn how to do that. But to be able to taste, it's a God-given talent that you have to hone in on. And like I said, I've spent my whole life honing in on what I enjoy and what I pull out and aromatics and flavors. And so it's really exciting to have my own brand now and really be able to showcase my lifetime of studying aroma and flavor development and be able to put out something special in the bottle. So it
definitely shows. Like me and Matt tried all kind of stuff, and these are really good.
Very impressive. This is my first time tasting these with you guys.
Very good. I know you've met a lot of distillers and a lot of famous people. You ever met the Bourbon King, Toby Kurtzinger?
I have not.
We met him.
Pappy
last
Gay.
week. Pappy Gay.
Oh yeah, no, I have not.
we were at Yellowstone, and he was sitting there and like he said, I'm like, that guy looks familiar. We were sitting there talking, and somebody's like, that's Toby from Netflix. I was like, I knew it was him.
I mean, there's so many people out there, and again, it's really cool. And one of the things that really dialed me into bourbon is every master still I've met is like, here's my number. If you ever need something, reach out. And like I've sat there with people in my store when I had it, and they'd be like, hey, I don't know about this with Four Roses. I'm like, I don't know either. Like, and I'd text Brent, and he'd respond back, And again, for these guys like to invite me to their home.
They're all
like,
approachable.
Man,
Yeah.
I'm just a super small retailer in South Mississippi, and all those guys are like, you're just as important as our biggest customer. And that's the way I've always approached it too. Is like I love to tell the stories and my experiences and.
That's the cool part about it. The community, like
absolutely.
We met LC Claude Maid's grandson.
Oh yeah, I know him well.
So we were talking to him and did a little show with him. So one night, Friday night, we were drinking at my house. My buddy's like, I've had this in college. I'm like, this just came out, the Conecuh Ridge. He's like, I've had it in college. Hold on. He's like, who you texting? I'm like, LC. At 9 o'clock at night, he wrote me back a paragraph. He did have it in college, but it was something different. And he told me the whole story. I'm like, okay, cool.
Huh.
I was like you said, like, hey, I'm gonna text the guy that part of it and find out.
Somebody brought in a half gallon one time of Seagram's distilled light whiskey under the Four Roses label export. And I'm like, I've never seen this. It was like from the 70s, And so we drank some. I was like, oh, this is really good, So I text Brent. I was like, hey, Brent, check this out. I'm tasting this. He goes, well, how is it? I said, man, it's really good for being lower proof. Like it has great mouthfeel, long finish. He's like, oh, we've got one in the lab. I'll have to go try it and let you know. Like it's so cool, like to be able to have that relationship. Like Bill Samuels, you know, he's retired, and the guys from Beam were like, there's no way Bill's going to meet with you, you know, going to Kentucky. And I was all right, well, I emailed him and he called me the next day. He said, absolutely, when are you coming up here? You know, it's just so cool to see like that level of appreciation.
For sure.
Yeah.
And all those guys have worked so hard to put Kentucky on the map as being, you know, the number one spirit, bourbon to be the number one spirit to represent the United States worldwide. And I think that's so cool to see. It really wasn't that long ago. I mean, if you think about it, you know, most of these, you know, I mean, now we're starting to move on to the next generation. But like when I started picking barrels, most of them were like second generation. You know, like hearing the stories with Bill and his dad, you know, and like, you know, working with all the guys and like sitting around the kitchen table, like, how do we make Kentucky the spirit to represent the United States? Like, how do we make this a thing? You know, and it's so cool to hear all the history and the stories, and it's just unbelievable.
I think all the like community too, because like you're a competitor and you're asking them and they're helping you. Most places don't do that.
Oh,
they don't want to talk to you, don't want to tell you nothing. But like you said, I've noticed that since we've been doing the tours and meeting people, like everybody kind of wants to help everybody.
Yeah, they want to grow the category. They want to grow the consumers' enthusiasm about the brands, you know. And it's the same with winemakers. Like this, again, I didn't bring it with me today, but we did this Keenan Cab Reserve finish. I've known Michael Keenan for 12 years, and I said, hey, Michael, look, I've got this idea. I want to do a whiskey finish in your wine barrels. What do you think? He goes, yeah, man, no problem. And I was like, well, I'd really like to use like, you know, some likeness of your label tied into mine. He's like, whatever you need. I said, well, Michael, what if I screw it up? What if you don't like it? He goes, look, I've had your whiskey. I've known you forever. You've got a great palate. It'll be something special.
That's cool.
And he let me buy 2 barrels of, so the same whiskey, the same barrels that went into making his Reserve Cabernet, half American oak, half French oak. So I bought 2 and 2, and I actually created blends of whiskey and blended in Cabernet with them. We let them oxidize, try to mimic what I thought it would be like in 6 months down the road. And then my wife and I tasted through all those blends. We picked out our favorite that we thought showcased both the wine and the whiskey the best. And then we laid down those 5 barrels of whiskey and the 4 wine barrels at Bardstown. And we tasted it 3 months, every month after that. And we ended up going a full year before we released it. And again, I did more of a, you know, more spice-driven, broad-shoulder whiskey to hold up to the red fruit tones from the wine. It came in 122 proof. And I reached out to Michael, and he actually flew down for an event in Louisiana and Biloxi, both states. We got to do a launch party, and he flew down for it. We did a wine dinner, and then we did a cigar event the next night. And it was, Michael's like, man, I can taste the terroir. So I got to watch him have the first glass of it and sitting next to me. He's
awesome.
like, I can taste the terroir from Spring Mountain, you know, my Cabernet in this whiskey. And it was such a cool, like, you know, limited release for us to do. And it turned out perfect. I mean, everything I envisioned it. But again, I don't know if anybody else would actually like blend the finishing, you know, into the whiskey. And like, I really try to look at all the details of what I think long-term, what it's going to be. So we have the next batch of that laid down right now. And we plan to get a little bit here to Alabama in November-ish, plus or minus 3 months, depending on how it goes taste-wise.
So how many states are you in now?
So obviously Mississippi, my home market. We're in Louisiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Wyoming. I had a retailer from Wyoming fly down to meet me, and I was like, look, man, I don't know about going to Wyoming. You know, that's a long way. And he's like, look, you don't have to travel up here. I got to looking into a store. He picks out great single barrels, picks them all in person like I did. And he said, here's the process. And so one retailer in Wyoming, and then we saw online through Shared Pour and Sealbox both. So that gets us pretty good distribution throughout the country. Like I said, we've been super fortunate. We made Fred Minnick's top 100 whiskey list. We've had 4 whiskeys make his top 100 the last 2 years. Each year we've had at least one crack the top 25. Our batch 6 was the number 20 bourbon of the year this past year. Very cool. You know, San Francisco won double gold, and the Ascot Awards, we won double platinum last year. We actually made it all the way through to the very final round. We ended up coming in 3rd place the last round of tasting. So Lucas and I watched it live. And in the end, we lost, you know, and Lucas goes, Dad, we lost. I'm like, yeah, but Lucas, you don't understand. Like, we went.
How big that is.
So number 1 was EH Trail Barrel Proof. Number 2 was Parker's Heritage, the 11, 13-year blend double barrel. And we were 3rd. No other brands got a single vote from the judges past the 3 of us in the final round. And I'm like, Lucas, man, we went toe-to-toe with the biggest multi-billion-dollar brands, which, of course, he doesn't know what that means. He's 6, you know. But he looked at me and goes, Dad, do you know what it's like? I said, what's that, Lucas? He goes, do you remember we watched Rocky and Rocky just wanted to go the distance with Apollo, right? Like, he just wanted to make it through all the rounds. He didn't need to win. He just needed to prove he belonged there and go the distance. I'm
That's
like,
true.
That's exactly what we did,
good.
Lucas. That's exactly. It was a pretty cool, incredible analogy.
Yeah,
so
that's perfect.
hopefully Lucas will be the future of the brand.
That's awesome. I love it.
I love
So
that you got to see that with your kid.
It was awesome.
that
That's
was really cool.
such a special moment.
Yeah, it was coming on, and my daughter was playing tennis, so Jennifer and Caitlin went to go do tennis. I said, Lucas, we have got to sit down for the next 10 minutes and watch this. And at first, like I said, that's what he took away from it was we didn't win. I'm like, but man, this is huge for us. And then for him to understand, like such a young age, it was such a cool moment, like to understand really cool. the significance of the brand and like that connection. So it's something really special for us. So
that's awesome.
I appreciate you guys having me on and tasting the whiskeys.
It
and
was fantastic.
I want to know what your favorite distiller is or distillery. Since you've been to so many, there's got to be one that.
Man, it's so hard because I've had such like preferential treatment over the years. Yeah. I picked more barrels from Four Roses than ever. I picked 49 barrels from Four Roses. So again, Brent's incredible. Mandy, Byron, who's no longer with them, he works over at Green River now, who talked me into buying my first barrel. I'd probably have to say Four Roses and Wild Turkey. I've spent an incredible amount of time with Eddie Russell and Rick House's drilling barrels. And Eddie always kind of tailored each experience to what he knew I liked. Which I thought was really cool. Like one time I was up there and I tasted this barrel and I was like, Eddie, I was like, do you know what this reminds me of? I was like, this reminds me of my 1979 Wild Turkey. So Eddie tasted it. He goes, oh yeah, this is turkey I grew up on my dad making. This is, I was like, it's the original bird. Yeah. So I bring my dad the sample. I tell him the story, and my dad draws up a custom label for this particular bottling. And we called it OGB, the original gangster bird. Nice. And we bottled it 101 Kentucky Spirit because I wanted to pay homage to classic Wild Turkey. Cool. And it was one of the coolest things. My dad drew up a turkey wearing a pinstripe suit to do on the label, and it was such a cool thing. And then, I don't know, about a year later, I'm up there, and Eddie said, hey, I've got something special. We came across these barrels. They're like 11 to 13 years old. They're low proof, so it can't be Russell's. It's going to have to be Kentucky Spirit. He goes, and I wanted to let you taste through them and pick another OGB2 basically what it became. Nice. And it was really cool like for Eddie to just take that kind of personal touch, but tasting with Freddie Johnson at Buffalo Trace, right, like hearing the stories with his dad and just the longevity of the brand and him being there and so impactful with it. It's so hard. I've tasted with Drew at Willett multiple times, at the warehouse. I've been to his house hanging out. It's just, I don't know, man. I've had a super, like I said, super fortunate bourbon career, going to Fred No's house, and I got a picture of Fred pouring Booker's over pork chops. He's like, this is how we flambe pork chops here in Kentucky. There's like 4-foot flames coming out, and he's like, oh, well, let's get some cured ham out of the smokehouse. And he tells a story about, his dad Booker going to, I think he was in Chicago, and they had, Kentucky style of cured ham, and he tasted, and he's like, no, this is right. He's like, go get the ham out of the trunk. And the guy was like, Booker, I don't think we can get the ham. He said, go get the ham out of the trunk so I can give some to the chef. And they said he walked around and like sliced pieces of his cured ham for everybody to try. So it's so cool to hear like all the history, and hanging out with Bill Samuels. He's like, oh yeah, Jesse James related to him. That's the bad side of the family, and oh yeah, I used to drive Colonel Sanders around when he was selling pressure cookers, cooked chicken in back in the day. It's just so cool. Like I've had such a fortunate, like I said, career of really spending a lot of quality time with these guys, picking out barrels. So I don't know. It's hard for me to say.
Right. That was still a good answer.
Yeah, it is a long answer to the question, but
that was still a good answer.
It's been a really cool career for me, and like I say, getting to go out on my own now, and still get to see those guys out at events and tastings, and it's just something really special, and something that I hope one of the kids want to get into. And if not, that's fine too. You can't force them to. My dad grew up where he had to work at his dad's store, and he hated the business, right? Because you're there every holiday, you're there all the time, and you really have to, and then he grew into love it, right? Because the more he spent time working there, his dad started him off like delivering kegs of beer, and they did all the catering for Yale College. So like he would have to go out and set up all the parties, break all the stuff down, so it's a ton of work, especially when you look at the beer aspect of it. But then he grew to love it and got excited, and like my dad told me he remembers tasting all the big name California wineries, like when they were nothing, like when they were just getting started, his dad's like, son, no one pays, $4 for California wine. Either, it's Gallo jug wine or it's Rothschild, and I've got some pictures, black and white pictures from the store. You can see the price and stuff. It's like $2 or $3 a bottle, and it's really cool to see kind of the long family history for me of being in the business in a roundabout way. So
awesome. Well, it's fantastic juice for sure.
Yeah, definitely love it. It's definitely going to be on our shelves, I know, and probably a lot of people that listen.
We are very excited to finally get to come to Alabama, being a neighboring state, and get to offer our product, at least in some capacity, a little bit smaller to start off with. Again, we're only 10-barrel blends of whiskey. It only goes so far. It only gives us about 300 cases, but we're excited to finally finally get out in the world and tell the story and get people enjoying the whiskey. And we've had a great response, the last couple of days being here in Birmingham, and just looking forward to the growth and the opportunity. And like I said, I appreciate you guys being excited about the whiskey and my history in the brand. So
I'm looking forward to it. So not only the outside two are coming, right?
For this first
okay,
the first bottling will be batch 9 barrel strength bourbon, batch 3 toast barrel rye.
Okay.
3 months from now, you'll see the batch 3 toast barrel bourbon, batch 10 barrel strength.
Okay.
So that'll be the next one coming. And if people want to know more about the brand, follow us.
We'll tag you on here too.
Yeah, you can go on our website. You can go on Facebook, on Instagram. K.LUKE Whiskey Company, and kind of keep track of what we're doing. We've already had requests to come up here and do some tastings and events, so looking forward to making it back up this way.
Awesome.
I try not to overcommit because I'm all about I want to take care of everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
But also try and spend a little bit more time at home with Jennifer and Caitlin Lucas after
I get
20
that.
years of retail, working 80,
sure,
90
for sure.
hours a week. So trying to balance out my life a little better. So
It smells so good, just sitting there.
Yeah.
Well, thank y'all for coming. I appreciate it.
That's
Thanks
fantastic.
for having us.
Yes, ma'am.
We appreciate you.
I love it. I have to drink some more.